welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm Iain.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to talk about a Stephen King movie which came out in 1987. Also directed, and only movie directed by Stephen King himself. Maximum Overdrive. Fuck yeah. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story is an adaptation of Stephen King's short story Trucks, which follows a rogue comet, Rhea M, that has passed close to the Earth. The Earth has been caught up in its extraordinarily long tail and has been covered in a green fog. The green fog seems to make all of the machines on Earth come to life and start to kill all the humans. A group of survivors, led by Emilio Estevez, hold up in the Dixie Boy truck stop and try to work out how they're going to survive.
I'm just going to start off by saying that it might come as a surprise, but I'm a huge fan of all of Stephen King's work, both in terms of his books and all of his film adaptations. Some of them, agreed, are better than others. And Stephen King went on record at this point in 87 and said that he was frustrated with all of the other directors ruining his work. So he wanted to make a movie that was true to King himself. So he took the reins of this movie. And it's also gone on record that he was coked out of his eyeballs whilst making this movie. And it kind of shows. I also like to think, and this is also, if you're a King fan, you'll also know that almost every single piece of work that he's written all happens within the same universe or the same multiverse as some of the books would go into. And straight away, when we see that green mist, instantly I was thinking of the Tommyknockers, and also thinking of Christine, which came out just a few years before this, where when you see the car driving around, you can sort of see that neon green glow. And so, again, it sort of cements that idea that it's all happening in the same world. But this film, again, adapted from another short story, there's not really that much there in terms of its material, other than the fact that machines are killing everyone. And we're not talking Cylons or Terminators. We are just seeing everyday objects like turkey knives, headphones, stereos, toy cars,
lawnmowers, trucks, just everything. I gotta say, I fucking love this movie. I didn't think I would love it again. I remember watching it when I was younger. It was on late at night on a channel, and I just flicked over and it started up and I was like, oh, what's this? And I was just immediately drawn into it. As soon as you hear that AC/DC, Who Made Who opening sequence, you're just like, fucking hell yeah. Coming to see it again after a few years, I was like, yeah, let's get down and review it. It's probably not going to be as good as I remember it being. No, it is fucking better. I know a lot of people sit and they look at this film and they go, oh, well, it's cheesy, it's 80s, Stephen King himself says it's a piece of shit. I don't fucking care. This film has everything I'll ever need from a movie. It's got horror, suspense, excitement, fucking rocket launchers, trucks with the Green Goblin face on, fucking Emilio Estevez. Emilio Estevez plays Billy, this down on his luck ex-convict working at the Dixie Boy truck stop. And all of Emilio Estevez is not the best actor. I'll go on record to say that. But he carries this movie on his own. He's just the man.
Alright, you bastard. Tell all your friends the main line's open. I got the best shit on the East Coast, practically uncut. You got that fuckface?
The supporting cast that he has are, again, very traditional Stephen King characters.
Yeah.
And there's not really that much interaction with him and the rest of the background cast. He only really plays off the owner of the truck stop.
Yeah, Pat Hingle.
Exactly. And the hitchhiker woman. Most of the other background characters occasionally have lines, but the camera's never focused on them. They're just there. We do also have the most irritating voice in cinema, for me. The only hesitation I ever have when I'm going to rewatch Maximum Overdrive is listening to her voice. So we're talking here about the voice of Lisa Simpson. Straight away in the movie, you hear her voice and you're like, wow, she sounds like a cartoon character. She doesn't sound like a real woman. And it doesn't help that her character does nothing but whine, scream, and shout throughout the film. And it's no surprise that the only character's name that I ever remember from the movie is Curtis.
Curtis! Curtis! Curtis? Is he dead? Curtis, I don't like this! Curtis! Curtis, what is going on?
I don't know!
Oh shit, I'm sick of this shit, you goddamn asshole! Curtis, will you help me? Help me! Ah!
Is he dead? Oh, she's so irritating. But, well, in that extent, she does her part well. It's just interesting when you think of her as the voice of Lisa Simpson, you hear her cursing and swearing.
Yeah.
It just kind of makes you chuckle a little bit. And that's something I also want to say about this film, is despite the fact that it is an over-the-top, excessive sort of horror action movie that is rather stupid, is that it's actually quite funny. I mean, the opening of the movie, where you have the shot of the bank, and there's people just walking in and out,
Yeah.
and you can see it just saying the degrees or the temperature at the top.
Yeah.
And then it comes up saying, fuck you, fuck you. And I'm just like, no one's paid any attention to it. It's just like, I don't think anyone else watching the movies even noticed it, because you just think, oh yeah, it's just a normal shot. Until Stephen King himself goes up to the machine, and of course, it calls him an asshole.
Honey, come on over here, sugar buns. This machine just called me an asshole.
See, for me, it's just one sequence after another that just keeps me giggling. From the fuck you sign to the Stephen King's an asshole to the bridge sequence, the way the bridge lifts up and all the cars are smashing into each other and everybody's screaming. You're just like, whoa, what the fuck's going on? And then you then go to the Dixie Boy truck stop, which, reading up on it, I thought was absolutely brilliant, that they built this whole set.
It was a set, not an actual,
Yeah, so that they could actually work on it. But truckers, because they're next to a real highway, truckers are driving past thinking it was a truck stop and pulling in and wanting to order food. And so they had to put signs up to say, we're filming here, do not just stop. But you then get introduced to one of the iconic characters of Maximum Overdrive, which is the Happy Toys truck with this big green goblin custom face job.
For me, if it wasn't for that Green Goblin truck,
Yeah.
the film would have been probably quite forgettable.
Yeah.
Because the lasting memory I have from my childhood of this movie is that green truck, that face. It's just, when its eyes glow red,
Yeah.
straight away you're just like, oh, you pissed it off.
I love the clown face on the back of the truck as well. That face itself, you just look at it, you're like, this fucking truck is evil. And to know that it's not just evil, it's fucking sentient. It's got its own mind and it's just wanting to kill everybody. But the trucks start to obviously work out that they need the fuel from the truck stop, so they force the survivors to work for them. And then you have other characters coming in. You have Connie and Curtis turning up because they've just been married and they're coming across dead bodies as well. And then you have Deke, the little boy. That sequence in itself is another iconic sequence where they're playing baseball and they finish their game and their coach goes to buy them drinks from the vending machine.
I don't ever fuck with vending machines anymore. If that thing swallows my money, it's fine.
gets a fucking shot to the nuts, shot to the chest, shot into the face, and you're just like, fucking hell.
And it doesn't just get shot. Those cans are coming out a hell of a force.
Yeah, and then the kids are all getting hit. So you're actually like, you know what? Stephen King is not holding back in this film. He is ready to. He's trying to obviously show you that in his story, nobody is safe. No children, no animals. Up to the point where a little boy, it's a really stupid sequence. The little boy on the bike just goes cartwheeling over onto the floor, and then a steamroller smashes in and squishes the little boy. I'm like, yeah.
It's so very rare that you will see so many children getting butchered and killed in a movie.
Yeah.
And especially in such a barbaric and brutal way as the steamroller. I think as a child I'd only ever experienced something on that terms of death since Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Where the guy gets dragged under the two spinning cylinders. But just watching him hold his head and go under, I mean, I watched this film at a very young age as well. And so it was sickening because the film actually cuts that clip out where his head does explode and a burst of blood comes out, and I can understand why that would be cut out, but I still think it's impressive to see now.
Yeah. We then follow Deke. Another great sequence I like is where Deke heads back to his neighborhood, I think, and he's just riding down the road, and you've got this amazing guitar solo just playing as he's riding down the road, and he's looking around at his neighbours, and people have been killed by lawnmowers and strangled by their hairdryer, and a dog's got a remote controlled car shoved down his throat, and you think something's going to happen, but he doesn't. He's literally just riding down the road looking at all this death around him with this guitar solo, and I'm like, that for me builds up that, you know, I would like to have seen more of the world be destroyed, you know, because you're pretty much confined to the Dixie Boy after a while, but you hear that other countries have had the same problem, and I'm like, I want to see it, but you don't get to see it. But it's when he comes to the end of the road and you have the ice cream truck come rolling down the road and it's playing King of the Road through its jingle, and I was just like, that gives this ice cream truck a body. Pretty much.
Well, it's its own personality because hearing that music, it's the only music not by AC/DC in the entire movie, so it's just like...
I have to say, even though it was directed by King, and he has himself said that, you know, it's not his greatest work, some of the shots are just amazing. I mean, there's that sequence where Connie and Curtis they're on one side of the highway, and you just have a marathon of trucks coming down the side. And we're not talking CGI or green screen here. These are real trucks. They've hired out all these people to drive all these trucks down this one road, and it's just such a brilliant wide shot to show that nothing else is alive. Mm-hmm. The only things that are alive are these killer fucking trucks.
Although it did make me want to go and watch Convoy straight afterwards. There are a few problems with the film, but they are, for me, instantly forgivable because I'm having such a good time with the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's not taking itself too seriously, as we're seeing with all of these bodies turning up and dying in the most ludicrous ways. Because if you actually try and stop and think about how did that person actually die, how could a pair of headphones and a Walkman kill you? I mean, really, other than blasting sound at you instantly to kill you. But again, it's funny. I like the comedy. And again, even though the Bible salesman character is not a very likable character, he's funny. Especially after his car gets rammed and he's trying to sell the Bibles and he's breaking for the door and he just turns to her and says, "Out of the way, bitch!" He's just like...
Son of a bitch! Out of the way, bitch! Huh?
I love that bit. He's there trying to explain that God is here and this world is a creation, and obviously, and you're like, you have no idea what's going on. A fucking comet has caused all these machines to come to life. Where the fuck is God right now?
There are even more problems with the film, again, where the owner of the Dixie Boy stop, for whatever reason, has a complete arsenal of weapons in his basement. We're talking rocket launchers, machine guns, grenades, just anything that you could need in any sort of apocalyptic situation.
I love Bubba's character, because I got confused, because Pat Hingle's character is called Bubba Heldershot.
That's
I think
right.
it is. But he calls everybody else Bubba.
Shitty job, but I reckon somebody's got to do it. Ain't that right, Bubba?
Fucked if I know, Bubba. Fucked if I know. You leave without punching out, and you ain't never gonna have to punch out again, Bubba. You messing again, Bubba, where you ought to be messing.
And so after a while, I was just like, who's that? Oh yeah, that's Bubba. No, it's not Bubba. That's Billy. Who's that? That's Bubba. No, that's Brett. For fuck's sake, shut up.
That's one thing you noticed instantly with the movie, though, is all of their accents.
Yeah.
They've got that sort of twang to it, and you notice it straight away on the bridge scene with the two guys yelling at each other. It's just, it takes you off guard at first, but once the movie is firmly set at the Dixie Boy stop,
Yeah.
it just becomes natural. It becomes part of the film.
Some of the sequences do dip, and some of them, I've got to admit, are through Emilio Estevez's
Love
acting.
interest, I think. It's when he and the hitchhiker start having scenes together.
Yeah.
For me, that is when the movie just dips dramatically, because we've cut from seeing outside of the Dixie Boy. We've seen what happened to the kids team. We've
Yeah.
seen what happened to the kid as he's cycling past, and we've seen Connie and Curtis making their drive towards the Dixie Boy. But once everyone gets there, the film never leaves there.
Yeah.
And then we start to have some very awful character development, which is funny. I mean, I have to laugh at it, otherwise I would actually be bored, because the pacing drops significantly and there's nothing really exciting or unexpected happening for at least 15 minutes of the film.
Yeah, you've got Brett and Billy talking, and she's all upset because the world has gone into maximum overdrive as a line, and I was just like, I hit myself in the head, like, I forgot she put that in.
That's what you're doing?
Yeah. That's what I was doing before every machine in the world went into maximum overdrive.
And then Billy's like, well, if I put my arm around you, would you stick me with your razor? And she's like, no. And so they have a hug sequence. And I'm like, okay, so to expand 5 minutes of sequence, you're going to have just them hug, you know? And then a couple of minutes later, Billy goes into the toilet to question the guy about the arsenal they've got downstairs, and the guy's taking a shit. So the whole time they're having their conversation piece, all you can hear is shit noises. You just hear him poop fall into the door. I'm like, what the fuck?
You really got a lot of firepower down in the cellar? Well, you heard him tell me to shut up, didn't you?
Oh, come on, Joy. This is serious.
He's got a lot.
Well, what else? Flamethrowers, rifles, what? Talk to me, Joey.
Everything. He's got everything.
But for me, that's Emilio Estevez carrying this film. He makes these scenes laughable so you can get through it to the next sequence, where obviously they are planning on how they're going to escape, and for some reason Billy knows that there's an island where there are no vehicles.
I'm thinking about this place called Haven. Now, it's an island about 6 miles off the coast. And there aren't any motor vehicles allowed on the place. None whatsoever.
None?
Mm-mm.
He's never been there.
And he knows where there's a yacht they can go and hijack.
Yeah, it's just like, you're a fucking genius, Billy. What the fuck are you? Why are you working here?
It's always the everyday man / convict that saves the day.
Yeah. Some of the sequences in the Dixie Boy, watching it now remind me, or I see a lot of similarities from The Mist.
Yeah.
Where obviously they were confined in the supermarket for a short while before they actually go off. You can see where they obviously developed this idea that obviously King usually does, where he forces the characters into one spot.
See, it's like also what happened with The Stand.
Yeah.
Where for me, that was great, where all the characters were on their own, all making their way to one point. And for me, once they all get to that one point, the story and the action just plummets and it just gets stale. Again, I mean, I always have problems with the film. Like I said, they're forgivable. But there's always one in particular that always annoys me, and it's sort of to do with what is actually controlling these machines in vehicles.
Yeah.
Because throughout the movie, we see characters driving cars that are completely unaffected by this comet. To the point where there are scenes where we even see cars still parked in driveways, yet everything else is empty. It only seems to be trucks and lorries and
planes.
And planes. Almost everything but cars.
Yeah.
So that really annoyed me because it's not really explained, nor do any of the characters even make reference to it. I mean, so much so that the trucks actually go out of their way to take a big shit on the cars. There's another part as well, which I'm trying to understand whether it's like a spiritual possession of the vehicle, where there's like an entity controlling it. Therefore, if there is, then you could understand that entity would need to have vision of what's around it.
Yeah.
But I'm under the illusion that whatever's controlling these vehicles is a sentience that can see all the way around it. And then there's this particular scene in the film where the two characters are talking.
Yeah.
And the side mirror of the lorry turns so that it can see them in its mirror. And I'm like, who's that for? Is that for the audience, the cameraman, or for whatever's possessing the truck?
That's it. There are a lot of things. It works well in a book if you're using your imagination, but putting it on screen, you're kind of like questioning it. You're seeing from the cab of the truck at the people. So is the thing inside the cab looking out? Is it just the whole cab? Like we said, these little questions come up, and and it takes you out of the film. You then have to, in a way, as a fan, force yourself back into it because you're like, fuck it, Billy's gonna save the day anyway.
I tell you what, as soon as you have those moments in the film, AC/DC just fucking bellows out another cracking song. I think 3 of the songs from their album are actually written for this film.
Yeah.
And they are awesome.
What's up, big guy?
Who Made Who is pretty much the most iconic song of the movie. And it does also lead into possibly my favourite scene in the film, and that is with the waitress, who seems to have quite a breakdown at the midpoint of the movie, where they're surrounded by the trucks, they're being looped around, and she gets catatonically drunk and starts bellowing out at the top of her lungs, "We made you!" And she goes out there to decree it to the rest of the trucks, like they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you did, so yeah, we'll behave ourselves now."
You can! We made you! Where's your sense of loyalty, you puky thing? We made you! We made you! Oh, we made you!
And so it gets to the point where the bad boy is turned up. The M16 military machine gun has turned up. And of course it's sort of possessed in its own way because it's Morse coding using its buzzer to the rest of them. And it doesn't give 2 shits whether they live or die, and blasts half of them away. It's just amazing. That there for me is always the most memorable part, other than the Green Goblin truck.
See, I fucking love this movie. So the whole film for me is just one favourite scene after another. But one that really stands out for me from watching it again is just as the M60 ATV is turning up, a bulldozer has turned up as well. And the machines are obviously threatening the Dixie Stop to say, look, you work for us or we fucking kill you. and everybody's asleep at this point. So when the ATV and the bulldozer turn up, there's a load of noise, and everybody starts waking up. And this guy comes out of the kitchen, smashes these 2 double doors open. He's got this bright green T-shirt on, and he just goes, "What the fuck? What the fuck is going on?" And I'm like, yeah, what the fuck is going on?
It's just the way he says it, like he's just woken up from a coma.
What the fuck?
I definitely recommend Maximum Overdrive. It is essentially the very best in B movies. It's everything that you want. It's whether they're not taking it too seriously, but they're taking it seriously enough to the point where it is funny, it is entertaining, there's memorable characters, memorable locations, memorable deaths, very corny, memorable dialogue, and one fucking badass soundtrack. Even if the film, for me, I don't think would work quite as well without that soundtrack.
Yeah.
For me, it is the perfect marriage of cocaine adult Stephen King, AC/DC. They are a perfect blend. I think Angry Video Game Nerd went on to say that almost any single movie in existence would be that much better with an AC/DC soundtrack.
Yeah.
I think Iron Man went on to prove just that.
This film, for me, sits up there with Killer Clowns from Outer Space and the 1980s The Blob. It's a silly, stupid sci-fi horror with badass trucks and AC/DC.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Adios, motherfucker!
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.